invention, but it is a real world. The landscape is not very complicated. I keep very simple landscape. Most of the all my attention pretty well goes into the actual images, the biomorphs themselves, the beings that live in that rather bleak world. It's only bleak because I want to focus on the shapes of the biomorphs themselves. So what's the next question? I see the questions are, I've got them on the screen here.
The next is, did your work change at all when you moved to Ireland? And if so, how?
Oh, yes. Well, no, of course, because it's an internal world that I'm painting, it doesn't, throughout my life, I've painted in a number of different places, and there's been very little influence from the external world. There is a slight influence. For example, when I was living in the Mediterranean on the island of Malta, the paintings had more looser, more colorful quality, which was a reflection of the light in the Mediterranean. When I moved to Ireland, which I did, when was that? In 2019, I came to live here. And there's been one specific thing that has affected my work since I've been here. You will see in the collection of works on show at the Redfern at the moment, there are a few small oils done on wood blocks. I've got one of them here. There's one of them, this is the one I've kept for myself. And you'll see similar ones to this, and it's a heavy wood block. And I just love the texture of the wood. That's what I liked. I found the texture of the wood very attractive. What happened was I went to a local craft fair in Newbridge here in County Kildare, and there was a man selling these wood blocks, and I bought as many as I could and painted on them because I just loved the texture of the wood. So that's one that I think is probably the only specific thing. It hasn't affected my biomorphs because they have an existence that goes back much longer, of course. But that particular technique was influenced by Ireland.
Thank you. We only have 5 minutes left, so would anyone like to ask a question? Yeah.
I was checking for somebody else. I just wondered, my first exhibition was also in Paris, and I remember it really well. Some of this work reminds me of it.
I can't hear the question. You'll have to repeat it, Hannah.
Desmond, we just had a question which was, is your work influenced by Salvador Dali at all?
Oh, slightly, in the sense that I like his early work where he does create a strange world, so that atmospherically there is some link there. But the difference is that in case of Dali, I find that almost every image of his can be related to something in the external world. It may be an elephant with the legs of a spider, long spidery legs, or a giraffe with its mane on fire. But there's still a giraffe and an elephant and an insect. He tends to modify natural objects, whereas I am trying to invent entirely new beings which are evolving according to basic biological principles, but evolving their own anatomy. So there is a difference in that respect. I've also been influenced by Tanguy, who uses, again, creates a world of strange shapes in a bleak landscape. As far as I'm concerned, all the surrealists have influenced me, but none of them very specifically. It's just been that I have learned from them how exciting it is to explore the unconscious mind and to allow irrational thoughts to control you instead of traditional work, which work which relates to the external world that we all know and live in. And of course, a lot of modern painting takes the traditional style and then modifies it. So you have exaggerations of color and shape, but they're still based on external objects. Whereas in my case, I'm trying to create a new internal world.
Did were you influenced at all by Freud at all?
Well, Freud, of course, a lot of Sigmund Freud's theories, I think, are completely nonsensical. However, he made one major contribution, which was the importance of dreams and of dreamlike thinking. And so that he is really the person who first emphasized the importance of unconscious thinking and of dreamlike imagery. And so to that extent, yes, Freud is important. I think a number of his more specific theories haven't stood the test of time, but that basic concept of his, the importance of the dream and the unconscious, has been crucially important to the Surrealist movement. Oh, by the way, I just should mention that the title of this exhibition is The Last Surrealist. That's because at 94, I am the last living Surrealist who attended meetings where you could actually be expelled. That was back in the 1940s when I was a young man attending Surrealist meetings. I would like to emphasize that I'm only the last Surrealist in the sense that I belong to that period. There are, of course, many young Surrealists still working today, but with the death of Dorothea Tanning at, I think, 101, and Portuguese, who's just died at the age of 99, that leaves me as the last survivor of those people who attended Surrealist meetings when the Surrealist movement was active. So I should just say that is the sense in which I'm the last Surrealist, and I apologize to young Surrealists who are still working today.
Thank you, Desmond. We have time for one more question, and I think it would be strange to have this interview and not mention it. So this last question would be, how does your training as a zoologist influence your art today?
Yes, of course, I had my first exhibition in London with Miro in 1950 at the London Gallery. And Surrealism just simply wasn't, so nobody would buy paintings, Surrealist paintings in those days. I intended to become a full-time Surrealist I was only 22, I was very young, and I was idealistic. And I thought, this is what I'm going to do with my life. But when I found that I simply couldn't sell any paintings, I decided that I would go on painting privately, which I've done ever since, over 3,000 paintings now. And I went on, I always had a studio, I always painted, but I did it in private. And I just gave up exhibiting and took on a professional life as a zoologist, because animals and art are my two passions. And I devoted my public life to zoology and to animals. And that kept me very busy, but I always had time to go to my studio and paint. So those are the two worlds. And my knowledge of zoology, of anatomy and physiology of animals has helped, because anatomically there are certain patterns of growth and developments of shapes and colors used in animal display that have an influence on my biomorphs. It's always indirect. I try never to borrow specifically from the animal world, but my knowledge of animal evolution has had a deep influence on the development of my biomorphs. And that is, I think, very clear. If you look at them, you'll see they do have a biological or zoological quality about them.
Well, thank you very much, Desmond. We won't take up any more of your time, but I think this has been a really wonderful introduction to the exhibition, and thank you so much for joining us this evening.
It's been a great pleasure, and thank you all for coming.